Hey guy, how are you all beautiful people are doing? Hope all of you are doing fine, and yes, this is the next season of creating Naruto comics in Naruto world. Akaban was graduated from the University of Arts and Design in the 21st century, then suddenly traversed into the Naruto's world. By bringing my knowledge of arts and my love of Naruto comic, I decided to recreate Naruto comic here. So let's start without any delay. On Konoha's side, the comic has also been updated, and there is also an extra 20 chapters One Piece. During this time, Sakumo is undoubtedly the happiest one, seeing how his beloved comic got updated every day with 20 chapters. Although crocodile fighting performance disappointed him, overall the villain was quite successful. At least it seemed to him. However, in the next plot, the plot of City of Gold appeared inexplicably. He doesn't know what's going on next, but it seems that there is a new map to be opened. I'm really curious. I heard that even devil fruits have appeared. Sakumo said to himself. With the addition of his white fang, his three-sword style has roughly formed a system, and recently he has been training a more mature three-sword style. A few days have passed, and he accomplished a small success in his training. Hatake Sagaki glanced at his son in the distance. He was reading a comic again. Forget it, let him read it. Hatake Sagaki has become more and more powerless recently. He has a very strong grasp of fast and slow, and he has terrible fighting power with a sword. But as Sakumo continued to grow, he felt more and more strenuous. More than that, nearly half a year ago, he could still abuse that kid, and now there is probably only one chance. If he misses a hit, Sakumo escapes immediately. In addition, Yiwu's sword skills and assassination skills are also very strong. What a headache. Hatake Sagaki's mood is the same as when Kakashi was beaten by Naruto and Sakura in the comics, except that it took Naruto and the others for 3 years, but this group only spent more than a year. What an amazing talent. However, Sakumo inherited his sword skills, and Yiwu inherited some of his sword skills while also inheriting superb assassination skills. As a teacher, it is definitely gratifying to have such a son and disciple. Then he glanced at the comics in his hand. Recently, there was always a feeling that the rain was coming, and he felt inexplicable that there might be another war coming. In fact, it was the third Hokage that had the most problems. Searching for the Jashin cult alone was difficult enough, but he didn't expect that there would be two big shots, Black Zetsu and Madara. Hiruzen took off the Hokage cape, looked in the mirror, and suddenly sighed sadly. The hairline has moved up recently. If this continues, the hair in front may fall out. Hokage-sama. Come in. Hiruzen quickly put on his cape, covering his precious hairline, and then took a cigarette to cover up his actions. Akaban walked in and glanced suspiciously. There seems to be no problem. He glanced a few times, and then said, "My lord, are you looking for me?" "Sit." Hiruzen took a huff on his pipe. He was silent for a moment and then took out a sealed scroll from underneath as he puffed smoke on his mouth and said, "It's not easy to follow Madara's trail. If I knew it before, I would definitely dissuade you, but now." Akaban took it and looked up with some doubts. "My shadow clone and blood are sealed here. In case you are in danger, unlock the seal and release the shadow clone in the scroll. He will channel out my summoned beast to help you," Hiruzen said solemnly. For Akaban, who owns Flying Thunder God Jutsu, all he needs at that moment. His shadow clone and his summoned beast are enough to give him a second or two to use a hand seal. "Thank you, sir." Akaban took it. This is a good thing. Losing one at a critical moment can save your life. In addition, Sand Village has been less irritated recently. Zack is a rookie who has a temperament not as good as Shaman. It seems Hiruzen is worried that the Sand Village would send assassin to kill Akaban. Cough cough, the One Piece plot is over. Besides, they rely on the comic incentive mechanism. Isn't the training effect improved several times? Akaban was a little embarrassed. The previous two comic plots happened to be either in the desert or hidden Sand Village. If it happened to them, they indeed had a reason to be angry. Two things, okay, go away. Hiruzen talked and vaguely saw one or two hairs floating in front of them, and suddenly became irritable again, and hurriedly waved him away. Akaban has good eyesight and saw some clues. This is the eternal pain of a middle-aged man, and he can only send a blessing in silence in his heart, hoping that his elderly will get rid of the pain of hair loss as soon as possible. After leaving the office, he decided to go back to work, and make another wave of efforts to get the observation haki and the fruits of thunder as soon as possible. And he didn't spend any points during this time. Devil fruit is no better than others, and the price of high-end devil fruit is certainly not low. Now only was he thinking of the ability of the Thunder Devil fruit and observation haki, but also of how he can give Granny Mito the ability to prolong her life. For the devil fruit that will suit Granny Mito's needs, he temporarily has some idea of what he will get for her. He thought of the two devil fruits at the moment, whether the Bat Devil fruit or the retrograde devil fruit that Ains used. The Bat Devil fruit model vampire belongs to the game's character abilities, while the Return Devil fruit is the fruit from the movie version. Both of these abilities are quite exaggerated, especially regressive, and Akaban suspects that even if this thing is drawn, it may not appear on the list. But it is foreseeable that if they can be exchanged, the price of points will definitely be abnormal. Who knows how many points are needed with these abilities? Before completing these, his current points cannot be used temporarily, lest when the time comes there are not enough points in exchange. However, apart from One Piece, he also planned to add something on Naruto. The battle between Grandma Kyo, Sakura, and Sasori is very exciting, and the plot is very coherent. He considered drawing the plot of this paragraph in one breath, and it happened to be compiled into one book. Everyone at Konoha was a little shocked by the latest update status, especially the plot before the update. When Sasori and Deidara stayed to fight the pursuit team, everyone looked forward to the plot here. As a result, one day later, another 10 extra chapters. Although most of these 10 chapters' contents are fighting, there is also a lot of info inside, including Sasori, Sasori's parents, and some things about Kyo. The plot is quite touching. But the most important thing is that there are many jaw-dropping jutsu and ideas in it. The Chikamatsu collection of 10 puppets, performance of 100 puppets. Everyone knows for the first time that puppets can play so many tricks, even if these are just plots in comics, but think carefully about the puppetry of the 10 that can be done. Although it requires extremely high chakra control and distraction ability, it is not a fantasy. Only performance of 100 puppets. The premise of this technique is to transform one's own body and turn oneself into a half-puppet-like existence so that it can control 100 puppets at the same time through various parts of the body. He is so cruel to himself. This Sasori is really a fierce person from head to tail. Not only that, the battle between Sasori and Kyo is the peak of puppet battle. Compared with the two of them, Kankuro's tricks are all broken things, not comparable at all. Due to the appearance of this story, a bunch of kids in Konoha Academy asked about the technique of chakra silk thread. This is too difficult for the teacher. After all, although chakra thread is not difficult, but for ninjas who have not trained it, it is not easy to master chakra thread that can control others in a short time. Of course, some ninjas are more sensible. Thanks to this, there were 1 or 2 more frequent visitors in the laboratory of the institute, many of whom quickly gave up, but one person persisted. This person's name Akaban is very familiar. Kato-dan. Yes, that's the original one. He is not a genin who graduates in the preparation departments that Akaban supervises. In fact, he had already graduated from Ninja Academy a year earlier than Akaban. He also mastered the art of spiritualization. He was a rare talent for Konoha. But now he is obsessed with puppetry. The puppet art he was obsessed with is not about manipulating puppets, but a way to make puppets, especially today when Akaban drew these 10 chapters. He was almost soaked in the research institute, wondering how to make puppets. Akaban once went to see Orochimaru's recent research project and took a look. This kid has a good production technique and has mastered the technique of making puppet joints in just 2 or 3 days. Although it is very rough, it should work when pieced together in a puppet. However, at the same time, Black Zetsu left Sand Village and finally arrived at the Land of Water after 2 days. At this moment, Madara is still fusing the 2 chakras, but he has got the trick, and 6 chakras have begun to be produced in his body, but this chakra is not enough to stimulate his eye to evolve. According to the current progress, you will be able to master the 6 chakras in a few days and give birth to the legendary eyes. Black Zetsu breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that Madara hasn't been messed up during this time. Madara glanced up at him, then said lightly, "So, can you tell me where you have been recent?" "I went to the Land of Fire and brought you comics." Black Zetsu took out the comics. One is the chapter where Akatsuki's shadow appears, Rinnegan, Black Zetsu, demonic statue of the outer path, and the other chapter that was updated yesterday. He didn't get today's update. Oh tilde, that really surprised me. Madara sneered. Just buy comics. Who would believe such nonsense? He didn't open his mouth to continue asking, waiting for Black Zetsu to speak by himself. Black Zetsu also knows that Madara can't be tricked, so he said, "Kurama Akaban may know what I look like, so I wanted to kill him. I went to Sand Village the day before yesterday to see if I could kill him using other people. The results of it." Madara did not comment. From the perspective of Black Zetsu, since he found out that his image was exposed, killing the source is reasonable and there was no flaw in it. The new Kazekage in Sand Village can be controlled in a variety of ways. If you cooperate, we can even control the kid who has been in the Kingdom of Wind to slowly develop our power, and when the time is right, we can directly attack Konoha. Black Zetsu thought about how to convince Madara. With Madara's pupil power, he is absolutely able to control a little kid, and as long as he persuades him, the plan can continue. Sand Village. Madara thought for a long time, and then said, "We'll talk about it when I awaken my Rinnegan." It is good. Black Zetsu never forced it. He knows why Madara has to wait for the Rinnegan to awaken, because awakening his Rinnegan, he can see the new content in the stone tablet. He can play along with Madara, anyway, that stone tablet has been altered by him. I really envy you two. One is Jonin and the other is a Chunin, and you don't have to do any tasks. Although I slacked on my training for a while, due to the task given to me by Sensei, I have been busy these days. Jiraiya said as he was about to cry. Although it's normal to be busy as a ninja, what frustrates him the most is that his teammates Orochimaru and Tsunade have become a Chunin in various positions, and there is no need for them to go out of the village to do tasks, and the team originally led by the third Hokage become a one-man team. As a result, Jiraiya, who is a genin, has to do various sea-level tasks independently. Sensei, trust you. Tsunade, who was taking pleasure in other people's misfortunes, said, but instead of complaining about this, you should think more about how to form a 3-person team and take the next Chunin exam. Originally, Jiraiya was lying on a chair and reading a comic. But he sat up quickly when he heard this and looked at Tsunade with a dazed expression. Chunin exam. Yes, next month will be the Chunin exam. This time it will be held in Konoha. Tsunade nodded. Ninja exam. Akaban just learned about this, and he couldn't help but think about how fast the days are. And it is almost time to hold the second Chunin exam. But he has a comic on hand. This is the update that will be sent for publication today. Like yesterday, the Naruto update has a total of 10 chapters, just to finish the plot of Gaara's arrest. Of course, relying on him to draw 10 chapters alone would definitely not work. There are 4 shadow clones working at the same time in the lounge, 3 of which are responsible for the One Piece update, and the last one helps to complete the Naruto update together. Jiraiya also read all the updates in one go, and then brought more than 30 updated comics. The money will be paid by the Toad. The Toads have been opening duo meals in Konoha for some time. At first, they only made Shima Sage's worm meals, but later when they read the Food Wars of Akaban, they have mastered various cooking methods such as frying and stir-frying, and they have gradually become more popular. More than that, their toad oil is very fragrant. After being stored in a special container, it can prevent volatilization, and it can be used in conjunction with fire jutsu, and the effect is outstanding. So Mount Myoboku is quite rich now, plus they don't usually need it. Basically, a toad of Mount Myoboku is richer than Jiraiya. When Jiraiya left, Tsunade asked in a low voice with some worry, is it really okay for Kakashi to have a Mangekyo? Uchiha now only has 2 Mangekyo Sharingan, right? Some time ago, Uchiha Ensho came back and publicized his strong belief in protecting the tribe, and then awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan. So even Tsunade, who was in the hospital, knew that Uchiha had another Mangekyo Sharingan user. Kakashi is a special character, not the same as a normal character. To be precise, every Mangekyo Sharingan is special. Among the characters in the comics who have Mangekyo, which one is an ordinary character? Even if Shisui was the first to awaken his Mangekyo, the strongest genjutsu Kotomatsu Kami, this dojutsu alone is enough to make him dazzling. Even more, how Shisui is Itakai's life mentor. Not to mention the rest. However, Akaban felt that Kakashi's ability to awaken his Mangekyo was not related to the fact that Obito was also on the scene when killing Lin. The abilities of the two were biased towards time and space. When they were close together, it was possible to advance its ranks at the same time. Of course, this is his personal guess. He drew for a while, finished the content of the 4 chapters that belonged to him, handed the manuscript to Kurama Yunlane, clapped his hands and prepared to rest. At this time, Jiraiya eagerly ran back. Tsunade was a little surprised, only to see Jiraiya winking at her, and then hurried to Akaban's side, lowered his voice and said, "Sage wants you to visit Mount Myoboku." "See me?" Akaban was a little shocked. He has already met Fukasaku Sage and Shima Sage. He guesses that if they want to see him, they will not call him an outsider to Mount Myoboku. So the only one who can summon him, an outsider to Mount Myoboku, can only be the great Toad Sage, that legendary toad who fights with Sage of Six Paths. Yes, the old man wakes up and he wants to see you. Jiraiya was not surprised. Although the great Toad Immortal once had a prophecy about Jiraiya, since that time, he has rarely received Jiraiya, but Akaban's name is often mentioned by him. Simply put, he was raised by a stepmother. From the time he recognized the Toad of Mount Myoboku, he knew there would be such a day. Jiraiya wanted to wipe tears too. Aren't I the one in the prophecy? Akaban, you shouldn't. Tsunade was worried. She knew the virtues of the summoned beasts of Akaban, and she thought it was the dream Tapper who awakened the great Toad Immortal and wanted to give Akaban a good talk. It should not be. Akaban gave her a relaxed look and then went to the insect restaurant with Jiraiya. The worm restaurant has a directional summon formation. Not long after, he came to Mount Myoboku, a very important training sage region in Naruto. Just standing still, what caught his eye was a bunch of toads. What the hell? Akaban was a little confused. Several toads were taller than Konoha's gate. Gamabunta at this time seemed to be relatively young, and now he was very small among a pile of big toads. Of course. Only Gamabunta looks very social, so Akaban can still distinguish him among the toads at a glance. He looks so small but stronger than Jiraiya. Akaban tilde, I want your autograph, autograph. The toads are very enthusiastic, but their movement is a bit loud, except for the small toads, they all have a loud voice. Akaban stared at those big toads. Too strong. If I take one of their legs, it should be enough to eat for a long time. Don't pester Akaban, the great Toad Sage wants to see him. Fukasaku Sage jumped on the toad's back. Everyone still listened to what he said, and soon the toads dispersed and made way for Akaban. The residence of the great Toad Immortal is a huge temple in the depths of Mount Myoboku. And Mount Myoboku is huge. Akaban walked for a long time before reaching the residence of Great Toad Sage. He was a little nervous as he stood at the big door without entering. The strength of this Great Toad Sage is temporarily unknown, but it must be one of the oldest creatures in the world. In terms of age, Black Zetsu is not as old as him. Old and refined, that's the kind of toad he will meet. Akaban took a deep breath, then pushed the door in, and saw a toad sitting on the enshrined throne, under which the word immortal was engraved. Who is coming? Is it interesting to play this trick every time? The human beings who can come to Mount Myoboku, besides Jiraiya, are currently only the kid from Kurama Akaban you are looking for. Fukasaku Sage couldn't help but complain. The great Toad Sage lay there, sitting up with difficulty, its eyes opened and took a look at Akaban, then muttered for a moment and said, "You are different from what I saw." People always change, and growth and maturity are the processes of change. Akaban responded without panic. The great Toad Sage didn't reply for a long time, and it gave Akaban a kind of déjà vu that is charging great move. It took a few seconds before it slowly said, "How much do you know about the eyes of reincarnation?" This. I don't know much, I only know it mainly because of the current patriarch of the Uchiha. The contemporary patriarch happened to awaken his main Gekyo, so I know some. Akaban explained. The great Toad Sage slightly nodded and said, "The stone tablet left by Horgromo does record some things, but it may not be written comprehensively on it after too long. Those eyes have the power to change the world, which is a taboo and hope." "Oh. Akaban, brow raised, didn't expect the great toad sage to talk to him about this. In my dream, I saw Madara was still alive. He awakened the reincarnation eye and tried to collect the nine-tailed beasts to subvert the world, and you. The great toad sage pointed at him as he paused for a while. Akaban showed curiosity in cooperation, and at the same time kept nodding, looking forward to the next prediction. However, the great toad sage had a puzzled expression, and after a few seconds, it said, "I was in a dream and didn't see you." Huh? What does that mean? Akaban didn't quite understand it. He didn't see him. Could it be possible that the great toad sage saw, was the comic future where Madara got reincarnated? Literally, you have never appeared in my dreams, but the changes caused by your existence have actually affected the dreams, such as comics and Jiraiya. The great toad sage said suspiciously. His dreams are some kind of prediction of the future. Generally speaking, the predictions are likely to happen. In fact, these predictions in the past are very accurate. But since Akaban appeared, he found that his dream was inaccurate. The Dream Taper family is very mysterious. The Dream Tapers who truly master the ability of the dream rarely sign summoned contracts with humans, so you are definitely a different existence. Akaban was not surprised at this point. With more contact with Dream Taper, he understood why the genuine Taper didn't like Danza. Their secret arts can link to the mental power of the contractor, and ninjas with weak mental power like Danza are simply spiritual pollution to them. The higher the wisdom, the more demands they have, and the Dream Taper also demands the same from contractors. You summoned me to mount my Obaku, is it possible that you want me to save the world? Akaban asked. The great toad sage sat up, stared at him for a few seconds, and then said, "Maybe it is you, maybe it is the child of the prophecy that Jiraiya is destined to meet. Who knows? The future is unclear and unpredictable, but no matter what, you will meet Madara who owns Rinnegan. So next I want to talk about the secrets of Rinnegan. What is Rinnegan? The comics explain it very clearly. Great Toad Sage said many things are also those things. Of course, he did not mention the 6 paths of pain, because the real ultimate power of Rinnegan is the kind of sage of 6 paths, and pain belongs to Nagato who was unable to move. However, some categories are still mentioned. Of course, these are not important. The most important thing is that the Great Toad Sage solves Akaban's long-suffering problem. In Konoha, how should he explain what he knows about Rinnegan? He was worried before, but now he doesn't have to. Now, if someone asks him why he knows it, he can give the pot to the Great Toad Sage. But this time was really thrilling. He almost thought that his waistcoat was off. Fortunately, the great sage toad couldn't see him in his dream, otherwise, he would definitely reveal his stuff. Then again, the great toad sage dreamed that Madara was still alive. Is that the ending in the comics? But it also mentioned that his own influence has indeed changed the dream. Akaban was surprised before because of this. At this time, he returned to Konoha, calmed down and thought about it. Perhaps the Great Toad Sage dream has been chaotic, part of it is the future of the original timeline, and some fragmented fragments are the timeline after Akaban appeared. In short, the Great Toad Sage himself might be confused, especially after dreaming that Madara was alive and when he awakened his Rinnegan, and his heart was even more panicked, for fear that Madara would release Kaguya. Reviving that old fellow is definitely not a good thing. In ancient times, Sage of 6 Paths went to fight his mother, and later he asked Naruto to lead the fight with Madara and Black Zetsu. Anyway, there is always a share of credit for winning. Like this time, it doesn't matter if Akaban can do it or not, anyway, if he said so, Akaban will have credit for winning Madara. If he loses, isn't there still a child of prophecy? The only gain from the trip to Mount Myoboku is that there is a lot of information without worrying about the source. Akaban returned to the comic shop and took a few glances. The guys in the shop had already finished the update, and they were all ready to send it to Izumi Yamano. After today's update, the Save Gaara chapter is completely over. At the end of the plot, Black Zetsu and another important character Pain make their debut again. This plot is expected to make Black Zetsu uncomfortable. Speaking of which, Black Zetsu definitely wants to kill himself now, but nothing happened as of now which baffled him. Akaban thought to himself. After a few seconds, he used his Flying Thunder God Jutsu and teleported to the Hokage building and reported the incident to the third Hokage. Hiruzen was worried about Madara and Black Zetsu, and he lost a little hair just thinking about it. But if he told him that Madara is definitely not dead, he hoped that he could not lose his hair. But it is obviously an impossible goal. After Hiruzen learned the exact news that Madara was still alive, he became more irritated. At that moment, a few more hairs seemed to fall off his forehead. It's too awful. Later, Danza also came. Of course, Akaban has already left by now, and it's Hiruzen who narrates the words of the great Toad Sage. After some conversation, Danza also became melancholy in an instant. Not only was Madara alive, he even awakened his Rinnegan. He guessed it at the beginning but he didn't think it would come true. At the Land of Water, Black Zetsu worked so hard and finally got the update, sitting in a corner of the cave reading quietly. On the other side, Madara, who completed today's training, is also reading the comics. The aura on his body became more natural, and the fusion of the cells between Hashirama's cells in his body began to accelerate. Through the condensing of the 6 chakras, his eyes seemed to have some faint changes. However, these changes are very subtle and have not yet reached the point of awakening. Page by page. After a laugh, Madara finished reading the update of the 2 volumes of 5 chapters and then fell into thought. What is that stuff? That huge golem, when a tail beast was collected in it, opened one more eye, if it is combined with the Rinnegan. He thought for a few seconds, and then asked, "Do you know what this golem is?" "I don't know, I only had an eternal Mangekyo and didn't even have the Rinnegan. But it is certain that this is one of the abilities of the Rinnegan." Black Zetsu replied without any flaws. He has completely taken over the identity of the Indra soul. As Indra, how could he know the power of the Rinnegan? Madara frowned slightly. Although he didn't know what Black Zetsu was thinking, he could feel that Black Zetsu was lying. This guy definitely knows something. He just kept hiding the truth from him. Madara sneered. He didn't pierce Black Zetsu's lie, just turned the comic back quietly, and after a few glances, he asked, "It's definitely you inside." "Well, that kid knows my looks and some of my abilities," Black Zetsu said. Madara nodded gently. Now he understood something. No wonder he moved. This old guy can follow him secretly in the past. It turns out he has a very strong perception ability. I must be careful of this ability in the future. He studied these 2 volumes from the beginning, and he was reading it as a Black Zetsu manual. Black Zetsu sat in the corner very calmly and read the comic, but in his heart he cursed wildly, adding another bit of hatred to Akaban. After reading it again, he felt very strange and couldn't help asking again, "You don't know the power of Rinnegan, But how does this kid know? I also don't know, maybe it's related to a toad on the side of the six paths. Black Zetsu didn't understand this either. It is reasonable to say that Rinnegan is confidential. It was not used much after the Sage of Six Paths sealed Kaguya. Therefore, except for Uchiha's stone tablet, it is basically impossible to keep records about Rinnegan's specific ability. Therefore, that kid must have heard it from the participants who sealed Kaguya back then, and except for the Otsutsuki clan on Moon, there is only that hateful toad. The Great Toad Sage. Yes, that toad has a very good relationship with the Sage of the Six Paths. Black Zetsu's tone was indifferent with a little bit of resentment. I see, it's really shameful to be deprived of inheritance by a beast. Madara got up and returned the comic he had finished reading to Black Zetsu as he mocked him. Black Zetsu was quite angry. But his tone of speech is disguised. As for the expression, it was dark all over, and there was no change in his expression, but Madara intuitively judged that the guy had lied again. Black Zetsu knew in his heart that it was impossible for Madara to trust him for a while, so he didn't care if Madara believed it or not. Anyway, he believed it. After all, these were real things that happened to Indra. The two old foxes deceive each other, fight each other, and enjoy each other's suffering. After chatting for a while, Madara got another volume update, which is the plot of Kyo, Sakura and Sasori battle. He flipped it over, then sneered disdainfully. Puppet. No amount of boring tricks, no matter how strong the puppets are, can't stop Susanu's punch, let alone Senju Hashirama. After reading it, he sneered and said, "Is this kind of broken stuff worth our effort to control? They are already good enough to exhaust the Konoha manpower. If you are alone with your current state, the result will be very bad." Black Zetsu replied. "When I awaken Rinnegan, it won't be so." After talking, Madara threw the book away and went back to continue to refine the 6 chakras. He felt that he was almost there, and in 2 days at most, he would be able to refine the 6 chakras to the point where they could stimulate and awaken his Rinnegan. Even if it is Black Zetsu, the time difference between getting the comics is more than 1 day. Of course. The same goes for the Hidden Sand Village. For Sand Village, the content of this book makes them feel quite complicated. On one hand, Sand Village has darkened again. Their third Kazekage, which was rendered very well in the front, was turned into a human puppet by Kyo's grandson. After his death, he would have to work for others, which is worse than the fourth Kazekage Rosa. On the other hand, the Red Secret Technique and Reincarnation Ninjutsu in comics are highly instructive to Hidden Sand Village, especially the Red Secret Technique, performance of 100 puppets. If they can develop a technique to transform themselves to this level, maybe they can bring their puppet jutsu to a greater height. The most important thing is that there is a ready-made candidate who meets the requirements for transformation in Sand Village. It's the second Kazekage, Shaman. As a result, the office became a comic discussion conference. And Zack was desperate. At the same time, when they finished reading the updates of Kyo and Sasori fight, the Country of Fire had already released the latest update. Naruto with the update of 10 chapters, and One Piece with 20 chapters update. In addition, Uzumaki Maito and Jiraiya books were also updated at the same time. Konoha's senior management can no longer pay attention to the comic update, and they are all talking about Madara, Black Zetsu, and the Eyes of Reincarnation. Of course, some people are more concerned about the new updates on Naruto. For example, the Uchiha clan. Mangekyo Sharingan finally appeared again, but what made the Uchiha people uncomfortable was that this eye appeared on an outsider. An outsider awakened their Mangekyo Sharingan. These are the eyes of the Uchiha clan called legendary. Up to now, only 4 from their clan have awakened it. Some Uchiha expect that they will awaken a new Mangekyo Sharingan user because of this, but obviously, they are dreaming. At least now, the newly awakened eyes of the Uchiha clan are getting fewer and fewer, as if it's reaching a bottleneck period. This is normal. People's tear points are divided into high and low, and where they feel touched from the plots are also different. Even the extermination of their clan plot can't make them awaken their eyes. After all, it's just a comic plot, and it doesn't happen in reality. But Kamui. This ability is really handsome, and it is a rare spatial ability. So many comments on Kakashi appeared on the comment board, and as One Piece continued to explode, the popularity of One Piece was obviously increasing. Apart from the rest, the appearance of Sky Island alone made many diving parties leave their thoughts on the comment board. However, the story of One Piece has only reached the prologue of the Sky Island chapter, and Sky Island's abilities and specialities have not been officially rolled out. When Akaban has finished drawing the draft today, it can be worthy of the plot of Luffy and the others. The really exciting part of this article was after Akainu appeared. Towards the evening, the senior officials of the village seemed to have finally finished their wrangling. It is not known for the time whether there will be any result for Akaban, only knowing that the first thing Danza did when he returned was to summon Akaban to see him. With the Flying Thunder God Jutsu imprint, it does not take much time for him to go to Anbu base. In just a few minutes, he arrived at Danza's office. Danza's face was very ugly and gloomy. Akaban hadn't seen this look of Danza that appeared in comics on his face for a long time. "Teacher, what was the result of the village discussion?" "Homura, this guy actually proposed to re-establish the roots and train a group of elite ninja who are not afraid of death. It's too stupid. If Madara really awakened the Rinnegan, what is the use of a group of elite ninjas who are not afraid of death? Do we send them to their death?" Danza closed the door, then furiously scolded. "Root! My Takado Homura!" Akaban's face was strange, thinking of his update today. Since the Gaara chapter is over, the next plot returns to the story of Naruto and Sasuke, so Danza and Sai also appeared. Originally he did not change the setting, but if my Takado Homura proposes to rebuild the root. He. After Danza's anger subsided a bit, Akaban asked, "So now, Homura uncle has gone to integrate the roots. Integrating a fart, his strength and vision have degraded too much, and he has long lost the ability to fight on the battlefield." Danza was a bit disappointed. Power is corroding people so quickly. After only 2 or 3 years, he feels that my Takado Homura has lost the ability to analyze and judge as a high-ranking ninja. Danza feels that as a superior, he can be cruel, ruthless, and disregard the lives of his subordinates for purpose, but the premise is that he has a comprehensive plan that allows his subordinates to dedicate their lives to complete the task. In the previous Uzumaki battlefield, the root team was asked to do the most dangerous task, and the death of all members was the best example. But who is Madara? That is a legend of the ninja world that is as famous as the first generation, and even the second Hokage has a hard time fighting him. In the real battle, the role of the Anbu ninja. Probably in the comics, like the rest of the ninjas in Sand Village during Gaara's battle against Deidara, all they can do is watch underneath, marveling at their fight and feel shocked from time to time, and cheering for their own powerhouses along the way. If he wants to get the roots, let him do it. I'm going to see how much he has the ability to make those families stake in his plan. Danza sat down and calmed his restless mood. No one can get the root. Don't look at Danza's future stupidity. He is still in his mind now, and he is the Shimura clan patriarch. He is the most prestigious person without Saru to be Hiruzen. On the other hand, who is Mitokado Homura? He didn't have a reputation or a background, he was only a consultant elder. Akaban remained silent. He doesn't know how to respond, and what he cares more about is did Danza ask him to come over just to listen to his complaints. It's unlikely. About Mitokado Homura, you don't have to do anything. This matter doesn't need us to make a move. Someone will clean him up, you understand? Danza finally warned repeatedly. Do I look stupid? Akaban was stunned for a moment before he retorted unconsciously. The third Hokage would be the first to oppose training a ninja to be not afraid of death, then sending them to their demise. So if Mitokado Homura dared to do it secretly, having his position as an elder consultant revoked is not the only thing he will deal with. Maybe his head will also leave his shoulder. HMPH, you are not stupid, but you are careful. Danza sneered, saying it quite straightforwardly and didn't save Akaban any face. He sat down and looked for it, then took out a piece of paper and handed it over. This is a piece of letter paper brought back by Anbu. The secret code of the Anbu is used above, and it needs someone who is proficient in the secret code to unlock it. Agent Akaban had learned it before when he was in charge of the Anbu mission, so it didn't take long for him to decode it. The missing child of the Uzumaki family was found in Kailin village and has now been transferred. The village of Kailin is quite far away from the country of the vortex. With the ability of a child, it is impossible to run from the land of Uzumaki to the vicinity of the village of Kailin. There is no doubt that this is the child Black Zetsu abducted. I know you have some manpower outside. Now the Anbu is not enough. So let your subordinates pay attention to the children of the Whirlpool clan, especially the red-haired teenager who lives outside alone. Danza said lightly. Got it? Akaban nodded. If the child can be found, some information can be roughly judged based on the child's whereabouts and other information. Although the people in Land of River's strength is not high, their smuggling scope is very wide. They basically have their manpower to the west of Land of Fire, and Uzumaki clan's red-haired is so eye-catching that you can hardly forget it if you see one. After explaining this, Akaban has completed the mission and can leave directly. Back at the comic shop, he revised the manuscript. The pages of Danza's appearance were all changed to the image of Mitokado Homura, but to be honest, his ability and courage are far from Danza. In addition, obviously, it was painted based on the Danza image, and with his arm full of Sharingan and the other eye covered with gauze, it looks like another Danza no matter how you see it. But a closer look at the extra pair of glasses, the reader can tell that this is Mitokado Homura. After repeated attempts, he gave up. Because apart from this pair of glasses, the appearance of Mitokado Homura itself is really nothing special. Will he use the Sharingan in his arm and Kotomatsu Kami with glasses on? So useless, unconvincing. He is definitely not as good as Danza. After finishing the manuscripts, he compiled all the comics into a book and sent them to the factory. This time Naruto has only 5 chapters, and One Piece has 20 chapters as usual. At this point, the observation Haki, and the Fruit of Thunder has already appeared. As long as the update is released tomorrow, both abilities should be on the redemption list. In these 3 or 4 days, he has accumulated nearly 30,000 points. As long as the exchanged items come out, they can be exchanged directly, and there should even be a part of the balance. If he obtained the observation haki and the thunder fruit, he wouldn't be afraid of Black Zetsu anymore. Even if Madara's eyes are awakened, he shouldn't be able to activate the powerful and invincible sealing technique of true planetary devastation, and when the time comes, he can escape easily with the speed of thunder. After the village meeting, Mitokado Homura found some clan that has a good relationship with him, hoping to get the support of these families. However, when he went to their door, they ended up shutting their door on his face without exception. Rebuild the root team. The village side didn't agree. Did he think that he can change the Hokage stance after getting help from them alone? It was obviously an idiotic move. Utatane Koharu wanted to remind him, but seeing that her companion looked like a madman and a new patient was sent to the hospital, she could only leave the matter of dealing with the injury first. Mitokado Homura is very angry. Because the comics were sent to the village the next day, his son bought a copy immediately, but when he accidentally saw the plot above. The root leader, Mitokado Homura. What the hell? Mitokado Homura immediately snatched the comic from his child. The child was stunned. His father had never been so rough before, but during this time, it seemed that his personality became more and more extreme, giving him a very strange feeling. He looked up at Mitokado Homura, stunned to speak there. Mitokado Homura turned page after page. At first, he was a little confused and angry, but after reading the plot, Mitokado Homura realized that this man named Sai was from the Root organization. Roots appeared in the comics. Could this kid think that Konoha should indeed have roots? He couldn't help being slightly pleased. At this time, Mitokado Homura's son asked timidly, "Father, are you really going to rebuild the roots? Konoha needs roots." In the past, Danza advocated the establishment of roots. I have been secretly promoting roots, but I didn't expect Danza to give up halfway. Then I can only do this big task myself. Mitokado Homura doesn't think he is wrong and even thinks that the rest of the people are too kind now and that his path is right. No, I heard that the roots are cruel. Look at this brother named Sai, he didn't even learn how to laugh, you can see. Presumptuous. These are important things in the village, is there room for a child like you to talk? Mitokado Homura sternly scolded. Opposition again. Even a child dares to oppose my policy. Am I so useless? No, I don't believe it. Mitokado Homura took a deep breath and then walked outside the door in a stride. He will visit all the big families again, especially the Kurama family. Akaban didn't expect that after the release of this book, Mitokado Homura not only didn't feel irritated but was happily approaching Kurama clan patriarch to discuss this matter. He seems to have misunderstood something and thinks that Akaban's mention of root is a supportive behavior to him. For the drowning person, any straw is worth pulling. Akaban was filled with emotion. Kurama Vawen is not very smart, but he has the basic abilities as a patriarch. He decisively closed the door the same as the other family, and he did not let Mitokado Homura enter the family clan. On this day, the third Hokage crystal ball jutsu never stopped. He has been monitoring Mitokado Homura's every move, hoping that this fellow who came down on the battlefield can wake up. Because of this, he didn't say anything about these plots in Akaban's comics. However, Mitokado Homura did not realize that he was at fault. Anbu headquarters. When Danza turned over the page of the comic, his face turned black. Although the root leader has become Mitokado Homura, his image does not seem to be very good. After so many years as the head of the Anbu, he didn't become the 4th Hokage, he also didn't become the 5th Hokage, not to mention this Homura's other eye is blind. In the comics, even his hand is like him. The old man poured his all and shed blood for Konoha. His one eye became blind and his hand was broken. Is it too much to ask for the position of Hokage? More than that, Danza knew at a glance that Mitokado Homura didn't have the ability to be in charge at all, and his ability, prestige and status were not enough to convince many families. Besides, what is the root prefix? Anbu, root. My lord, is there a problem with the comic today? Aburamatome is puzzled. She hasn't read it yet, but she heard that today's content is very popular, and the current elders consultant also appeared in the comic. No, it's nothing. Danza put the comic away and then asked about Mitokado Homura's movements. In fact, he understands why Mitokado Homura is persistent. Except for the death of Uchiha Kigami and Akimichi Uchiha inheriting their family business, among the few disciples of the 2nd Hokage, there are only the 3rd Hokage Hiruzen, Danza and Utatane Koharu. Utatane Koharu has the best relationship with Mitokado Homura. She has been serving as a consultant elder before, and she doesn't need to do much. She just needs to make suggestions on some of the usual decisions. However, since the establishment of the medical squad, Koharu has become a senior in the medical department, studying medical techniques and ninjutsu with Tsunade every day. In comparison, Mitokado Homura appears to be doing nothing and accomplishing nothing. In the long run, he will be eliminated by the management. But this is not a reason for him to be unreasonable. Danza shook his head slightly and then didn't bother to worry about it. He has analyzed and said what should be said in the meeting, and it's useless to dissuade him. It's okay to let this guy hit a wall. Afterwards, Aburamatome reported what's happening in the land of Uzumaki. Although he knew that Madara was likely to be in the water country, Danza did not dare to send anyone there. To prevent the rats being eaten by snakes, he also transferred all the Anbu personnel from the water country back to the coast. Mantra, Observation Haki, 5,000 points. Thunder Devil Fruit, 155,000 points. Seeing the price of points, Akaban was a little relieved. It's a bit expensive, but it did not exceed his psychological expectations. After all, the Thunder Fruit is indeed one of the top devil fruits in the world of One Piece, and it's worth the price. Although the Rinnegan is only 12,000, that's only because there is a reduction from the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, otherwise, its price is quite high. Originally, he wanted to redeem it in one breath, but after thinking about it, he was afraid of what would happen if the Thunder Fruit was eaten, so he used Flying Thunder God Jutsu to come to the reserve department. There is a high mountain here. On the mountain, there is no need to worry about too much movement to damage the surrounding buildings. System, redeem the Observation Haki first. Observation Haki not only has a perception function, but can also predict the enemy's next move, and combined with the ability of the Thunder Devil Fruit, the ability and range will be greatly enhanced. Similarly, with the perception of Observation Haki, the Thunder Fruit can perform ultra-long-range strikes. As long as he can perceive it, he can gather thunder clouds to attack. Ding! The exchange was successful. After deducting the points, he diffused his perception ability while remaining calm, slowly entering a state of seeing and hearing. Under the dual perception of fully letting go, he can even sense the situation at Konoha Gate, and probably because of the system product, he can even clearly feel the changes in the aura, position and number of those ninjas. Redeem the Thunder Devil Fruit. Ding. After deducting the points, the Thunder Devil Fruit appeared in the palm of his hand. It looks different from Ox Devil Fruit and Whisper Devil Fruit, and the pattern is more simple and gorgeous. Take a bite. The taste is unspeakable, and this kind of unpalatability cannot be expressed in words. I have to say that Luffy can eat the devil without changing his expression and only says the taste is not very good. He really is a monster. Akaban took a bite, felt it for a moment, and after confirming that he had the devil fruit ability, he threw the remaining part on the top of the mountain. First, control the lightning. He shook his wrist, and then pressed it down. The lightning gathered in the palm of his hand, which looked like a Raikiri. With the effect of the thunder fruit, as long as he has the ability to control it, he can disguise his lightning ability as a lightning-style ninjutsu. These are just pediatrics. Akaban took a deep breath and began to refine the current into electric waves, strengthening the ability and scope of his observation haki. Feeling it again with all his strength. Almost half of Konoha was within his perception, and on the other side, he reached a relatively prosperous town in the country of fire. This time, he could even feel people's emotions. However, at this time, a kindly impression came from the Senju clan. Is it Grandma Mito? Akaban knew that he was probably recognized, and instantly gathered his abilities back in embarrassment. Damn, how embarrassing. Originally, he wanted to try God Punishment, but the movement was too loud, so I should try again on a rainy day. Akaban glanced at the sky, packed up and prepared to go home. But at this moment, a snake climbed up from below. It's a snake clone of Orochimaru. You snake really, you are everywhere. Akaban was a little helpless. Just about to leave, but he was caught. I feel like there is someone on the mountain, so I just take a look. Are you here to test new ninjutsu? Orochimaru stared at Akaban, feeling a little strange. What kind of technique do you want to practice on the top of the mountain? I'm studying the nature transformation of lightning attribute and experimenting with a new ninjutsu, but it failed. Akaban said. Oh. Can I understand what kind of ninjutsu it is? Orochimaru is very curious. Thunderbolt was born in the sky. I was wondering whether, through ninjutsu, I can naturally spawn lightning to attack the enemy. Akaban stole Sasuke's Kirin principle. Orochimaru was silent for a moment after hearing this and seemed to be thinking about the feasibility of this technique, but after thinking for a few seconds, he reacted and said, by the way, I just don't have to go to the village to find you. Are you free now? Akaban glanced outside. This high mountain is a full kilometer away from the bottom. It didn't feel much to patronize it before, but now it feels shaky and dizzy. Go on and talk. With the use of his flying thunder god jutsu, Akaban went down and appeared at the research institute. Walking in, he saw Dan in the research institute with Orochimaru. The current Dan is about 14 to 15 years old, and his appearance is not much different from the later generation, but it lacks a bit of maturity. You are Akaban-senpai. Nice to meet you. My name is Kato Dan. Seeing Akaban, he saluted gently immediately. Don't worry about seniority, you are 1 year older than me. Akaban was ashamed. Although he is special Jonin, he is only a level 1 Jonin higher than a Chunin, so he was a bit embarrassed being called senior by those older than him. You don't need so much etiquette. Orochimaru smiled faintly, then waved to Akaban and asked him to come over. Akaban moved closer. There is a puppet in front, but it is not the same as the puppet in Hidden Sand Village. This puppet is made of steel and looks very burly and huge. It is better to say that it is a mecha. He raised his head and glanced at Dan. Dan smiled embarrassedly and said, "At first, I thought about creating a puppet. Later, with the guidance of Senior Orochimaru, I created an iron-clad puppet that matches the spirit transformation technique. After using spirit transformation technique, the body cannot move, and it is easy for the opponent to take advantage of it, so I thought for a moment, it is better to create a puppet like a scorpion to protect the body, but the problem is how to control it. I can't solve it now. Orochimaru has a headache. The steel puppet is a good puppet. It even incorporates some of his ideas and creations. Its strength is also quite strong, but the steel puppet is very heavy and cannot be controlled by the chakra line. Since you created a steel puppet, don't think about man-made manipulation, don't be limited by your thinking." Akaban reminded them. "This thing has been developed in the direction of robots, can it still be controlled by humans using chakra lines?" Orochimaru nodded thoughtfully. Although he couldn't think of a way to make it move automatically for a while, Akaban was indeed a good research direction. To be honest, Akaban's first reaction when he saw it was Mecha Naruto. If Orochimaru can solve the Mecha consciousness, and then integrate the seal into the nine-tailed chakra, let it automatically unseal under certain conditions, and the protection ability will be absolutely leveraged. But now, I am afraid there is still a long way to go. If it can be researched, it would be a good thing. A bunch of nine-tailed robots, plus a self-destruction program. Think how awesome it would be if a large army of mecha was created. I hope Orochimaru can create that kind of mecha." Back at the comic shop, he rarely saw a group of people reading One Piece at the door. The story of Sky Island is very interesting. It is completely free of thought and imagination. In addition, the existence of God Enel adds a lot of topics. The god who controls heavenly punishment. In ancient times, there were many gods in the world of Naruto, and there are still some legends about them, such as the goddess of life, the god of death, the evil god and so on. But it's different in One Piece. Now the plot has revealed that God is only a stronger race. For example, Gan Fall. He was once a god, but he was also pulled off the altar by Enel. There is no doubt that as the plot progresses, Enel will also be pulled off the altar by Luffy and others. God is not out of reach and unmatched. From Black Zetsu's point of view, this is a blasphemy against his mother, because, in his heart, Kagura is the god above all living beings. And so, he was very angry, but he had no strength and could only rely on Madara's power. But Madara didn't want to go out now, so he had no choice but to only curse that kid who created the comic on his hand. Fortunately, Madara is about to open his Rinnegan. Waiting for 1,000 years, finally, there is an Indra reincarnated that can awaken Rinnegan and can complete a series of his subsequent plans. In order to resurrect Mother, everything can be endured. At this moment, a line of blood and tears shed in Madara's eyes, and he opened his eyes involuntarily. The patterns in his eyes revolved crazily. After a few seconds, the patterns began to converge and change. A powerful aura burst. Suddenly, purple appeared in his eyes, one after another ripple spread out from the center. Finally, his Rinnegan finally awakened. Ha 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 ha. I succeeded, this is the power of the 6 realms. Hashirama, with this power, the entire world is in my palm. Madara laughed wildly. The powerful aura shook the mountains and the wild, and the birds and beasts panicked. Then he stretched out his hand and he dragged a big tree from the outside of the cave into the cave. Black Zetsu watched all this quietly. In his eyes, Madara is like a child getting a new toy, stupid and ridiculous. However, Black Zetsu did not know that Madara sensed some of his hidden thoughts through the ability of the devil fruit. Previously, he could not do this with the ability of Whisper Devil Fruit, but after combining the 6 chakras and awakening his Rinnegan, he could hear a little emotion. Evil intent and ridicule. 2 emotions. There is no content, but these 2 alone are enough to make Madara more vigilant. But he didn't do anything, but kept an arrogant, wanton attitude and laughed wildly, and said in an inflated manner, let's go back to my hometown and see what the sage of the 6 paths left behind at the end of the stone tablet. HMPH, finally, our goal can be achieved. Black Zetsu happily plays along. Ha 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 ha, let's go. Madara put the chakra away and walked outside the cave. While awakening Rinnegan, he comprehended a lot of abilities, such as summon demonic statue of the outer path, controlling gravitational repulsion, Chibaku Tensei, and a special kind of ability. The 6 paths Tentails Coffin Seal. It is much more powerful than his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Madara can even float in the air by using repulsion, but this will consume some chakras, and as far as his age is concerned, such excessive waste is unnecessary. Black Zetsu merged into his shadow, and then Madara took a boat to return to the land of fire from the land of water. Along the way, he continued to experience the newly acquired power while sensing the changes in his body. After awakening Rinnegan, the physical conflict on his body seemed to weaken a little. According to the current state, he should be able to live a little longer, but after his strength increased, he became more alert of Black Zetsu. This guy is very mysterious, definitely not as simple as the soul of Indra. Danza left some Anbu on the border, but Madara's traces could not be found by the Anbu alone, and due to his Whisper Devil Fruit, these people had already been spotted by Madara. The strength of these Anbu is really the same as the ants on the feet in front of Madara with his Rinnegan. So why compete with a group of ants? Madara didn't care, and after disembarking, he walked towards Nakar River in a calm manner. On the way, he bought the updated comics of Naruto and One Piece. From the time Kakashi wanted to use the Mangekyo, he didn't read it. He didn't read it until his Rinnegan was activated before he had time to see what was written later. A foreigner activated the Mangekyo Sharingan. Madara sneered, thinking that it was too absurd. It's fortunate that these foreigners can barely use the Sharingan without Hashirama cells, so activating the Mangekyo. I am afraid it is a dream. Therefore, he was not surprised that Kakashi was hospitalized. On the contrary, Akaban had miscalculated the side effects of foreigners using Mangekyo. As for the story of Gaara's resurrection and Konoha's high-level wrangling plot, Madara only thought of it as boring, and he didn't bother to read it after a quick glance. He has experienced too many of these intrigues. But Danza is really annoying. From Danza, Madara saw the shadow of Senju Tobirama, who was equally gloomy and suspicious of his clan but did not have the strength to match it. The same clown. He frowned slightly, then threw the comic away disdainfully. Both Madara and Black Zetsu are fast, and they have strong perception abilities. Under deliberate avoidance, the 2 of them traveled unimpeded all the way and quickly reached Nakar Shrine. The secret in the Nakar Shrine, this group of trash must have told all Uchiha's secrets. Madara walks on the familiar road to find the location. What? The person guarding the shrine had not yet reacted, but was drawn by him and killed silently. Entering the secret room, Madara opens his Rinnegan to read the contents of the stone tablet. Madara has not been here for a long time since he rebelled against Konoha. The last time he came to see the Stle was with Hashirama, and it had been a long time since Hashirama died. He stood in a trance reading the stone tablet. Senju Hashirama died, there is no one in the world who can match him, and he has several points of loneliness when he has gained invincible power. Fortunately, everything came to fruition. Infinite Tsukuyomi can create a dream world without war and peace forever. Isn't peace what he pursued all his life? He beamed with joy and read this sentence unconsciously. Originally Madara had no doubts, but Black Zetsu's emotions became extremely excited at this time. Excited, this is the least emotional fluctuation Black Zetsu has experienced. And Madara couldn't help but frown slightly. He saw the content of the stone tablet because he has the Rinnegan, so why is Black Zetsu so excited? Even if Black Zetsu has an antagonism with the descendants of Asura and Sage of Six Paths, his goal is at most to destroy all descendants of Konoha or Asura lineage. Isn't it? He wondered whether there was a problem with the content of the stone tablet or Black Zetsu's purpose was for him to see the text and about the infinite Tsukuyomi. Black Zetsu, what do you think of this passage? He advocates so-called peace just like Senju Hashirama, but I don't believe in saying that the infinite Tsukuyomi achieves permanent peace. I believe that it's better to collect the nine-tailed beasts and destroy the world directly. Black Zetsu sneered. This sentence is not a lie. Madara couldn't figure out the situation for a while, but from Black Zetsu's reaction, he felt that this guy had been following him because of the last sentence in the stone tablet. The infinite Tsukuyomi, does it hide any mystery? I must investigate again. Madara decided in his heart, so instead of ending his cooperation with Black Zetsu, he walked out of the secret room. Konoha, the land of the thousand hands. Uzumaki Maito sat in a chair, closing her eyes and feeling the surroundings. After a long time, she opened her eyes. Do you know what you see and hear? Akaban was a little surprised. It has only been less than half a day. And Uzumaki Maito already mastered this technique that belongs to the One Piece world. The Uzumaki clan has the eyes of Kagura, which is similar to the observation haki that you taught me, so I can master it faster. Uzumaki Maito explained. Then she stood up and said, let's go, Madara is in Nakar Shrine. What? Akaban immediately used the ability of his observation haki after hearing it. He hasn't found Madara yet, so it is certain that Uzumaki Maito's perception and mental power are above him. But now is not the time to talk about this. Go, take me to Nakar Shrine. Uzumaki Maito said solemnly. But fast. To be honest, Akaban is reluctant to let Uzumaki Maito go. Madara coming to the Nakar Shrine shows that he has awakened the eyes of reincarnation. And now it is not worthwhile to fight Madara to life and death, not to mention, even if both sides suffer, it is not worth it. However, Uzumaki Maito was so persistent, so Akaban couldn't help but hold her hand, and quickly disappeared in the room and appeared to Nakar River where he placed a mark with Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Wait here for a while, I'll drag him out first. After Akaban finished speaking, he ran up the mountain quickly. After reaching the position, he began to exert his strength to display the power of the Fruit of Thunder. God's Judgment. When Madara came out of the shrine, a dark cloud suddenly appeared in the sky. What? Madara raised his head and glanced at the sky. Hurry up, this is some kind of thunder ninjutsu. Black Zetsu immediately reminded when he sensed a huge energy response from the dark clouds above. Lightning. I didn't expect Konoha to have such ninjutsu masters. Madara took a few steps forward. The dark cloud did not move, but he knew that the force still locked him. A very powerful aura. But wanting to kill me, Uchiha Madara, this is not enough. He stood there and stopped walking. In the next second, electric lights burst into the sky. Boom! A horrible beam of lightning fell from the sky, like a god's punishment, on the top of Madara's head. Amid the roar, rocks crumbled, river water evaporated, and amidst the dazzling electric light, the huge and burly Susanoo gradually appeared. Its armor was shattered and its head even split, causing part of the lightning to bombard the interior. It is so powerful that it can break through the body completely. Black Zetsu hid in Madara's shadow and did not dare to come out. He knew that Madara didn't use his full strength, but this thunder and lightning were also not just as simple as ninjutsu. He just sensed a little chakra and more of a strange and unknown power. Uzumaki Mito did not expect Akaban's magical power to be so great, so she couldn't react for a while, but she immediately used the unique ability of the Uzumaki clan. Sealing Jutsu, adamantine sealing chains. The chains flew out, encircling Madara. It's you, ha 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 ha, Hashirama is dead. Now I will tell you. I, Uchiha Madara, will realize his dream and make the ninja world peaceful forever. Madara laughed for a while, followed by ripples in his eyes. Rinnegan. Uzumaki Mito moved quickly. However, the adamantine sealing chains did not stop the attack. While besieging, a tailed beast bomb flew out of the forest. At the same time, thunder clouds gathered in the sky. Madara looked up. A silver unicorn fell from the sky. This lord won't mind the children's noise, but if it's too annoying. Without finishing talking, his figure has disappeared. Teleport. Uzumaki Mito was startled slightly, and then, through the use of observation haki and her perception ability at the same time, she confirmed that there was still Madara in place. This is not teleportation, but an ability to replace oneself with a clone. But it is very special. It is impossible to detect with eyes or simple perception. If she hadn't been taught by Akaban's observation haki, perhaps she would have nothing to do with it. The adamantine chains instantly trapped it, and then a series of sealing techniques quickly fell through the chain, directly sealing this shadow for a short time. At the same time, on the mountain, Madara suddenly appeared beside Akaban. Limbo, border jail. Electrical discharge. The thunder and lightning produced a shock wave, which briefly repelled Madara, then Flying Thunder God Jutsu. After appearing beside Uzumaki Mito's side, he used his lightning again. The fruit of thunder accelerated, and his whole body almost turned into lightning. Thunder God. Although it is not as exaggerated as 200 million volts, it still gives him a completely elemental body and is different from the lightning power of lightning ninjutsu. Plus Uzumaki Mito's tyrannical seal technique, Madara once again uses a substitute. As a result, with a series of sealing techniques, the second shadow was sealed. They are too difficult to deal with, and you haven't completely mastered the power of the Rinnegan. It's better to leave first and wait until you get back to master it thoroughly before you come to clean them up. Black Zetsu was anxious. Madara is very strong, and also very smart. The only drawback is that he is easy to swell. Don't look at the two sides that seem to be equal now, but the shadow of Limbo, border jail has a time limit, and now the opponent sealed 2 of his clones, and if they continue to seal the 4, he is afraid that Madara is the next one to be sealed. Although Chibaku Tensei is not used, but the other side also has Flying Thunder God Jutsu. If they meet with Chibaku Tensei, at worst the other side can go off in advance, and come back when the jutsu is over. With Uzumaki Maito's sealing skills, Akaban is as free as a bird above, and even if Madara has the Rinnegan, there is a risk of being sealed. Maito, I will let you have the last look at this village. In the beginning, I created it with Hashirama, and I will destroy it myself in the future. Madara said as he suspended in the air, and as his words stopped, he disappeared with a whistling. Among the 4 Limbo clones, one of them ran to Land of Wind. Uzumaki Maito stopped and took a few breaths. Her chakra consumption is not large, but Madara's difficulty is far beyond her expectation. The tailed beast ball does not work at all, only the sealing technique can achieve some effect. Akaban returned to his human form, with cold sweat on his face. He didn't dare to use illusion skills against Madara at all. He could only rely on the other moves. From the time of travel to the present, this was the most thrilling and direct battle he encountered. If it weren't for the Fruit of Thunder, there would be no way to get Madara. Sure enough, it is the Rinnegan, and from him, I sensed Hashirama and that black Zetsu aura. They probably gained Hashirama's power in some way. Uzumaki Maito was in a complicated mood since the battle that year was full of conspiracy and calculations. Huff, Grandma Maito, I just said, we should not come, they dare not target Konoha with you there. Akaban said while gasping. Although this fight is unnecessary, at least it can be seen that Uzumaki Maito's sealing technique is really great, and even Madara is extremely cautious of her. Otherwise, there is no need to frequently replace himself with his limbo shadow to avoid the siege of the adamantine chains. What happened? A bunch of guards arrived at this time, but what they saw was a messy battle scene. The ground was scorched, and the Neckar River was beaten up. At the shrine not far away, they can vaguely see a few Uchiha people who have collapsed. Go and clean up, don't ask more about specific matters. Madara's news cannot be publicized on a large scale, for the time being, otherwise, it will definitely cause panic. Akaban waited for Uzumaki Maito to finish before taking her back to Konoha. But this trip was not to the Senju clan, but to the Hokage office. The 3rd Hokage must have felt such a big movement, but Uzumaki Maito has all taken action. If she can't solve it, it doesn't make much sense for him to go. Instead, staying in the village, he can stand up to protect Konoha at a critical moment. Uzumaki Maito looked up, then sighed softly. She hadn't been to the Hokage building for a long time since her husband Senju Hashirama died. Call all the elders to come to the meeting. Homura doesn't need to come, I suggest you catch him and let him calm down. The Senju clan has faded out of the management, and Uzumaki Maito doesn't know how to change her usual style, but now she is in a bad mood, and she feels even more angry when she thinks of Mitokado Homura's recent brutal operation. Yes, I will do it right away. Hiruzen said embarrassingly. Uzumaki Maito is the first wife of Senju Hashirama, and she herself is a highly respected shinobi, and anyone who trains under her was like a son, not to mention that Mitokado Homura did a poor job this time. Before long, a group of high-level Konoha personnel gathered at the Hokage building. This is not just Utatane Koharu and Danza, but also every clan leader, including small clan leaders such as Yui. In terms of identity, Akaban had no right to sit here. However, he is a participant in the war and the next generation heir to the Kurama clan. The new generation of new stars in the village is the most respected. So everyone did not express any opinions about this. They all sat down according to their positions. Uchiha Yuan came last. The incident happened in their Nakar shrine, the ancestral shrine of their Uchiha clan, and it delayed a lot of time just to deal with the affairs of the clan. After the crowds had gathered, Uzumaki Maito glanced around and then said lightly, "Perhaps many of you have questions. What is the situation just now? I will just briefly say, Madara awakened his Rinnegan, and he arrived at Nakar Shrine." Madara. Uchiha Yuan stammered, and his face turned pale. After finally catching up with Konoha, Madara's appearance will cause the whole clan to suffer. He felt anxious. The key is not Madara, but his Rinnegan. Hiruzen said heavily. Looking at Uzumaki Maito's emotions, he knew that Madara's strength was terrible after awakening, otherwise Madara would not dare to appear near Konoha at all before the change. Such an enemy is terrible. Madara possesses a terrifying shadow clone that normal people can't see or perceive, and ninjutsu and physical skills can't hurt it at all. Even I can only temporarily seal it with the sealing technique the moment he materializes. Uzumaki Maito said solemnly, "Akaban and I have suffered from this clone. Ninjutsu and taijutsu are invalid, and can't see or perceive under normal circumstances. How to fight this?" Like Uchiha Yuan, the patriarchs of the clan who hadn't taken the matter seriously changed their expressions. Akaban has also participated in the battle. "Does your illusion work?" Hatake Sagaki frowned slightly. "I dare not use an illusion at all." Akaban shook his head, let alone whether the illusion was effective on Rinnegan. If the opponent counters him, that would be asking for death. Then he stretched out his hand, and a condensed lightning ball appeared in his palm. "Look, everyone, what is the difference between this jutsu and ordinary lightning style?" "Reikiri." Hatake Sagaki stood up and took a look, and quickly rejected his guess. "It's not just lightning jutsu. It possesses a special power, which is closer to natural thunder and lightning in energy nature, rather than thunder ninjutsu condensed by chakra. I wonder if you have heard of senjutsu?" Uzumaki Maito said lightly. "Senjutsu?" A group of people looked at each other, glanced at each other, and shook their heads. But after a moment of indulgence, the patriarch of the Hyuga clan said, "I once heard my father say that the first Hokage-sama can enter a state called Sage Mode. In that state, chakra will be very different from ordinary chakra. Yes, the essence of the Sage Mode is to absorb natural energy and blend it into the chakra in a certain ratio to create the Sage Chakra, and Akaban's technique more closely uses natural energy instead of chakra. So I guess, if you want to deal with Madara, you probably have to master this power." Uzumaki Maito said. In fact, she didn't say a more desperate result. Judging from the attack effect, even mastering the Sage Art may not cause too much damage to Madara, unless the user can reach the level of Akaban's attacks. But now in Konoha, how many people can do this? Too little. It's too little. After the meeting, everyone was very depressed, especially Danza. He easily thought about it, so he was the first to guess what was in Uzumaki Maito's mind. For Madara like this, the crowded tactics are simply a joke. It's time to stop my Takado Homura's idiotic plan. It's not that there is no good news. From Madara's condition, he will not come again in a short time. We have a lot of time to think about countermeasures. After Uzumaki Maito finished speaking, she knocked on the table and asked, "Are there any questions?" "No question." "Then disband, I'm tired too." No one reacts. Because most people don't even know that the legendary Madara is still alive, and he even awakened Rinnegan, which is only the Sage of Six Paths have. All this came too suddenly. After thinking about it for a long time, Hatake Sagaki asked a more critical question. Madara only has a Sharingan, so how did he get the Rinnegan? According to the stone tablet left by the clan, the ancestors of Uchiha and Senju are the heirs of Sage of Six Paths. Maybe if you gather the power of Senju and Uchiha, you will have the opportunity to open the Rinnegan. Uzumaki Maito glanced at Uchiha Yuan, and then said, "But obviously this isn't all. I guess it may take a Mangekyo of the degree of Madara and also have the power of Hashirama to have a chance to awaken Rinnegan." The look in her eyes was very obvious, and she signaled Uchiha Yuan, who is the patriarch of the Uchiha, to pour out some dry goods, and don't hold back to pretend to be an ostrich. Of course, Uchiha Yuan understood this. The problem was that he didn't know what was going on either. After considering it for a long time, he said, "Ordinary Mangekyo will gradually lose their eyesight if used too much. Madara doesn't seem to have this condition. I guess his eyes are likely to be a level beyond normal Mangekyo Sharingan. It seems to be related to Ajuna's eyes." Uzumaki Maito knew it but didn't say this. Hiruzen took a look, and then got up and said, "If there is nothing else, this will be it for now. If there is other information, I will hold a meeting as soon as possible." "Yes." Afterwards, everyone dispersed. After the patriarchs left, Hiruzen, Danza, and Utatane Koharu sat underneath, without moving for a long time. They were thinking, Madara is so strong, what if Uzumaki Maito is no longer a threat to him someday? It seems, no other way. This is true despair. Akaban, let's go. Uzumaki Maito beckoned to take Akaban for a ride. After the fight, she was really tired, and she didn't even want to walk. Seeing her in this state, Akaban became more determined to make a devil fruit for her, and this was also for the sake of his own life. After this battle, he completely entered the sight of Madara and Black Zetsu. In order to survive, all parties must be strengthened. To let him choose, the best choice is undoubtedly the bat fruit of the vampire species. It's a game plot, so it doesn't matter if he draws an extra special movie version. Secondly, this fruit ability is suitable for Uzumaki Maito. She is one of the people most capable of injuring Madara. After having the Bat Devil fruit, as long as Madara is injured and sucks blood to make her opponent age. It's okay if they can't beat Madara, as long as they can shorten Madara's life force by using the vampire ability, and let him die due to old age, they will win. This seems to be a more stable way. I should draw it first. If I have something I'm unsure of, Orochimaru will definitely be happy to cooperate. Akaban was not worried that no one wanted it. Even though Orochimaru was forcibly patched by him and no longer did human experiments, the subject of immortality and regeneration has always been the first list in his small books. Many people heard what Madara and they were doing, but few knew the inside story. Uchiha Yuan went back to bury the dead gods. These tribe members all died in Madara's illusion. He didn't know what the two had experienced, but from their facial expressions, it was obvious that they died terribly hard. Akaban sent Uzumaki Maito home. She was indeed very tired and went to bed directly after she got home. After instructing Tomiko to take care of her, he returned to the comic shop and thought about drawing the movie version. In any case, he should get the Bat Devil Fruit first to solve the life problem of Uzumaki Mito. As long as her old body recovers to her peak and develops the power of the Devil Fruit, even Madara awakened Rinnegan can't stand up to a battle. Furthermore, at worst, he just needs to redeem his Rinnegan. But I can't be impatient. Although I have Uchiha bloodline, Mangekyo Sharingan and the Uzumaki physique. Even without Indra Chakra and Asura Chakra, I can barely support Rinnegan consumption. Hashirama Cell was already on the redemption list after Yamato made an appearance in the comic, and the price was not too expensive, only 1,000 points were needed. But this is a pit. Why is it cheap? Because Konoha has Hashirama cells. The study of Hashirama cells has never been a pot of Orochimaru alone. Senju Tobirama himself has studied it many times, but there are no results. Things that can be easily obtained are of course very cheap, but if you want to integrate, you can only rely on your own physical strength like Yamato. But this is not necessary for him at the moment, and Madara has no plans to die like in the original story. As for Black Zetsu, with the Whisper Devil Fruit that Madara acquired, his future is unpredictable. With these many variables, Black Zetsu may have some way to go before resurrecting his mother. After all, the Whisper Devil Fruit doesn't show much in anime. It is really difficult for Akaban to guess at what level a character like Madara can develop this waste fruit. If it reaches the level of fruit awakening, Black Zetsu will be miserable. Akaban thought for a long time, and finally calmed down, and began to draw the story of One Piece. From the plot point of view, this plot should actually be placed after entering the new world, but now in order to obtain the fruit ability in advance, he can only draw it first. Of course, even if it's drawn, it doesn't have to be printed. He just shows it to a few people, and activates the above abilities and seals it up, plus it's the movie version again, so the problem is not too big. If it really doesn't work, at worst he will draw Bleach, and redeem a Zanpakuto for Grandma Mito and let her become a Shinigami. Anyway, the Shinigami of Dead Demon Consuming Seal seems to have something to do with Uzumaki clan. Of course, this kind of method is a bit ridiculous, and it is also a last resort plan for fear of losing the vest. Akaban thought for a few seconds, then separated the shadow clone and started to work. 10 chapters for Naruto, 20 chapters for One Piece. The four of you will divide this part of the task, and I will do the movie by myself. Today, he hasn't gotten the mission. He originally felt that he could slow down the update of One Piece, but now it seems that he needs to proceed with this kind of update. It's because he wants to redeem the armament haki. Taijutsu skills can threaten Madara, and Konoha happens to have a ninja who is suitable for practicing ultimate taijutsu skills. Since Devil Fruit can work with 8 inner gates, it should be possible to enhance the body even more with the use of armament haki. In addition, Naruto's comics should also be considered to be updated, so that he can earn more points, and further improve his attributes. Compared with Madara, his attribute is still a bit lacking, even if the other side is just an old Madara. In short, he needs to update more. What is this? Tsunade sits in the room. She has been very busy recently and didn't plan to come, but who would have thought when she returned home, she found Uzumaki Mito lying in her bed. She knows her grandma quite well. Even if you recognize her old age, she will not easily show her fatigue. So it must be something in the middle that caused this to happen, so she came to the comic shop to find Akaban and asked what happened. Well, it's a comic book with no beginning and end. I thought of the plot, but it didn't fit the main story. So draw it separately and see if I can find some inspiration. Akaban pondered for a moment, then explained for Tsunade, and then handed the half-drawn comic to Tsunade. Anyway, I just need to find someone who can read this book, so it doesn't matter who it is, right? Tsunade read it absent-mindedly. She was mainly curious about what happened to her grandma, but she asked a few acquaintances, but they still kept silent about it and didn't reveal any information at all. But thinking about it, Akaban probably wouldn't say it. She was worried in her heart as she read it silently, and put it aside listlessly. As he said, this is a story with no head and no tail. It seems to be a fragment of a certain plot, but it seems chaotic and cannot be connected to the main story. She looked to the other side. The other shadow clones were obviously working harder than the original, and each shadow clone had a stack of finished chapters far beyond their body. What a lazy pig. Tsunade curled her lips and got up to leave. Wait, I want to know what you think. As his word ended, Genjutsu was suddenly released as it hit Tsunade. Akaban took a look, then continued to paint. At his current level, using illusion on Tsunade no longer requires painting as a medium, but for Madara, playing illusion is a dead end. Unless he uses a Mangekyo Sharingan. But it is not strong enough. He sighed softly and quietly speeded up his drawing speed. It didn't take long for this volume to be completed. Since there is no head and tail, the plot seems a bit abrupt. After showing Tsunade half of the book, it seems that the redemption options for Bat Fruit are not displayed on the list. Do I need to finish it? Akaban thought for a moment, turned it into a book, and put it away, waiting for Tsunade to come out of the illusion, and then show her the complete comic. Before long, Tsunade escaped from the fantasy world. She looked a little dazed, obviously, she didn't expect this to be the case. Uchiha Madara. As the granddaughter of Senju Hashirama, she listened to the story of Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara from an early age until Uchiha Madara rebelled. Of course, influenced by Senju Tobirama, she has no adoration for Madara. There was only self-blame at the moment. Her old grandma was fighting desperately, but she couldn't help, not even knowing it happened. All of this is true, look at this comic. Akaban handed out the comic. It was still that comic with no beginning and no end. Tsunade looked at it from the beginning and wondered why Akaban wanted to show her this. Bat Devil Fruit times model, vampire form, can suck blood to make yourself young. How can this? She thought it was funny but then thought of Dewey. Many Konoha top brass already knows that Might Dewey became a bison human, and Tsunade who participated in the physical examination was one of them. The power of this transformation is derived from this thing called devil fruit. I dreamed of this fruit. Perhaps there is such a fruit that makes people younger in the world. Tsunade, I want to go to sea. Akaban explained. Do you want to find this fruit and give it to Grandma? Tsunade understood. But it's too much, it's just a dream, a painting. If he wants to find a devil fruit in the vast world, how is this possible? Tsunade had finished reading the comic. Akaban glanced at his system panel, and the bat fruit really appeared on the exchange list. But Tsunade didn't know what to say for a while. It was a bit nonsense to think about this kind of thing. 1 month, in 1 month, I will come back if I can't find it. No way. Tsunade rebutted excitedly. If her grandma can restore her physical condition in her peak period, the odds of winning against Madara will be greatly increased. But to let Akaban go out to sea, what if Madara comes back? the current Konoha can't fight Madara without him. Even if he uses the Flying Thunder God Jutsu that can make him come back as soon as possible, it will consume a lot of chakra at that moment. If Madara arrives, it will become dangerous for Ikeban because of insufficient chakra. So Ikeban can't go. After thinking about it, Tsunade prepared to volunteer, but before she finished speaking, the door was pushed open, and a white head came in from the crack of the door. "What are you talking about? What you can't find in a month, take me." Jiraiya. Ikeban's eyes brightened, and Jiraiya was indeed a more suitable candidate. First, he was relatively strong. Although he did things without making sense, he was very reliable in key things. At that time, all he needed to do was just make an imprint on him quietly, and then use genjutsu to hint Jiraiya to where to find the Bat Devil fruit, without him having to go to sea. What a good idea! The more Ikeban thought about it, the more reliable it felt, so he patted Jiraiya on his shoulder and said, "Jiraiya, do you want to go out and see the world?" "Definitely. I've been on a mission recently, and even when I went to Mount Myoboku, I only got abused, and I felt that I didn't have much inspiration to paint." Jiraiya is also very bitter. Fortunately, he is more sensible, knowing that Tsunade is nearby, and he didn't say what his comic was. Of course, Tsunade probably knew what his book was, but just pretended to be deaf. Of course. Sooner or later you will be uninspired if you shrink in one place. Do you want to go to see the sea world and experience the Grand Line? Going to sea? Willing. Jiraiya also sounded enthusiastic. Although the Grand Line was made up, but during this period of him doing sea-level missions, it is inevitable to hear some special information. And the Grand Line is one of them. Starting from the land of river, to the land of water, and even more distant countries and islands, many people have explored some areas. Very well, this task is up to you. If someone is willing to go, it couldn't be easier. Ikeban gave him a special kunai, and he doesn't need to talk more about it. As long as he talks well with the third Hokage and Danza, everything will be fine. The three generations and Danza are full of worry right now and are now in a hurry to go see a doctor for their hair loss. And they didn't care whether it was possible or not, so they agreed to his request easily. Naturally, for this mission, Jiraiya needed a team. So Ikeban created a 4-man team consisting of Anbu, reconnaissance team, and Inuzuka Ishii, who possess powerful reconnaissance capabilities and some combat effectiveness. The next day. The comics were just updated the next day. Jiraiya and others quickly bought several sets and then left Konoha reluctantly. There is no sea around Konoha, so the closest way to the sea is to go to the south coast. One Piece has exploded day after day, and Naruto even updated the 10 chapters in one breath. Many people in the fleet have parts that they have not read, so these comics are enough for them to read while on the road. After the comic update, Danza came to the Konoha, arrived at the Hokage building and once again came to the office of the Hokage. He holds a pile of information in his hand. These data are part of the records of the second Hokage research on Hashirama cells. They have been sealed in Anbu headquarters before and processed as S-rank secret seals. But now, I disagree, Danza. Do you know how many casualties this plan will cause? Hiruzen was furious. The study of Hashirama cells cannot bypass human experiments, because the ability of animals alone cannot withstand the horrible erosion of Hashirama cells, even the summoned beasts. I know, so I will transplant it myself. Danza took a deep breath and said firmly. Sacrifice is necessary, especially in the case of insufficient strength, someone must stand up and open a way. Originally, he hadn't made up his mind, but after thinking about it all night, after reading today's update, he finally made this decision of transplanting Hashirama cells on his body. Danza felt that he could be the leader. What? Hiruzen was shocked. That's it, I'm not here to ask for your consent, I come here to tell you that if something happens to me, Anbu's missing position is for Akaban, he already has this ability. Danza turned and left after speaking. As he himself said, he didn't plan to solicit the opinions of Third Hokage at all, just to inform Sarutobi Hiruzen, his best friend. Anbu must have begun their research today. Sarutobi Hiruzen sat in a chair and didn't move for a long time. As the third-generation Hokage, he cooperated with Danza to make Konoha a lot stronger, but Sarutobi Hiruzen was not without his shortcomings. Sometimes he was too hesitant and indecisive, and often missed opportunities. However, Danza is also very stubborn at times and doesn't give up on his decision. Therefore, the pairing of the two makes Konoha strong, and whoever leaves, the effect will be greatly reduced. At this time, Hiruzen hesitated for a long time but did not stop him. Intellectually, he knew that Danza was right, and even at this critical moment, the improvement and development of impure world reincarnation is not an exaggeration. Madara, who has awakened Rinnegan, is no longer the current Konoha can deal with. Madara easily crossed the border of the country of fire and reached the country of the river. He holds a book of comics in his hand, which was updated today. It is very easy to get the update in the country of fire, and the price is so cheap. You already awakened your Rinnegan, so why are you still reading that boring comic? All the living are boring, but this comic, anyhow, it can be a pastime. Madara read and walked, acting like a ninja version of the Bowed clan, and his answer made Black Zetsu silent for a while. Wasn't it you who ordered a shadow to escape yesterday? The two maintained a tacit understanding and did not mention what happened yesterday. Madara took a few steps, and then started to talk and said, "You mentioned earlier that Kazekage in Hidden Sand Village can be controlled. What is the specific plan?" "I originally planned to control the death of the second-generation Kazekage by using the Anbu from Konoha lurking in the village, but I did not find Konoha Anbu after searching around, so you can only use your illusion to control the third Kazekage. The third Kazekage is just a child and it should be easy to control," Black Zetsu explained. Madara ran here especially. Obviously, he had a full plan when he could not easily defeat Uzumaki Maito. Therefore, Black Zetsu believed that Madara asking this remark was more of a probe. And this is not the first time he did it. "Then, collect the tailed beasts and summon the golem in the comics?" Madden asked indifferently. "I don't know this. A long time ago, I didn't awaken the eyes of reincarnation, but summoning that kind of big guy definitely requires a huge amount of chakra. I think I can use the Sand Hidden Village," Black Zetsu replied. "Well, just do that." Madara started to reread the comic again after reading it. With his awakened Rinnegan, he naturally looked down on things like tailed beast transformation, Kusanagi sword, Yamato version of wood style, etc. But it's not bad to watch ants fight occasionally. Especially when he saw comics, he could always think of that sinister, talented little guy. Next time he met him, he must kill that kid. The reason is not up to the point, perhaps because of his flying thunder god jutsu, or the kind of lightning mixed with natural energy, but it is certain that that kid will become a scourge sooner or later. On this point, he is surprisingly in agreement with Black Zetsu. Originally Madara wanted to go to the Land of Wind with all his strength and take control of the third Kazekage as soon as possible, but after entering the Land of River, he immediately noticed the environment here. The styles of towns, riverboats and piers are all consistent with the towns of One Piece in the comics. Jiraiya is like a sunrise in the sea. In terms of time, the Fire Country's fleet is the latest to go to sea. Long before them, the rest of the countries, large and small, had already formed their fleets. More than that, the powerful ships of the Fire Country are more deployed in the east to guard against the Water Country, so the ships in the south are relatively dilapidated. But it's okay. It was the first time Jiraiya went out to sea, and he was quite excited. Although it may take a long time for him to go to bathhouses and hot springs again, there must be many lovely beauties like Nami and Nico Robin in the sea. He went with such eagerness and hope. The fact is, once out of the sea, it is normal for them not to see people for 2 or 3 months. And this information, Akaban didn't remind him, otherwise Jiraiya would probably not go. He completed part of the update and was ready to move his muscles and bones. Today's update of Naruto is the same as yesterday. He plans to update 10 chapters. Through continuous updates, his points increase speed has increased significantly, and his daily point income is nearly 10,000. But this point is still not enough in the face of expensive attributes and devil fruit redeem prices. Let alone, the price of bat fruit has reached an expensive 30,000. Of course. It's not that the bat fruit is better than the thunder fruit, but it involves lifespan. So this is normal. Because of the bat fruit vampire form, in a sense, it can live forever. A real immortal. Time is the enemy of most powerhouses, as strong as Madara, Roger, etc. cannot escape the erosion of time. He glanced at the 28,000 points, he sighed silently. He thought it could be used for some attributes, but now he can't even afford the fruit itself, let alone upgrading his attributes. I still need to work. He came out and took a drink. He planned to go back to work. He glanced outside the door and saw a mark appearing at the agreed position with Anbu. This is the Anbu contact mark. But they only leave a mark, indicating that this matter is not in a hurry and needs to be kept secret, otherwise, they can just show up or let out their presence. Akaban groaned for a moment, then returned to the room to say a few words to Kurama Yunlane and then explained to the shadow clone as it continued to draw, and teleported to the Anbu base using Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Anbu is now the same as his home. It doesn't need to be audited or lead the way in and out, so he can just go here. But this time, as soon as he entered the Anbu, the girl from Aburam appeared. Master Danza is in the previous laboratory. Akaban frowned slightly. The place involved must have something to do with ninjutsu or something. In addition, general ninjutsu will be handed over to the research institute, and the laboratory will be set up in Anbu. Reminiscent of recent Madara, Danza may be eager to improve his strength. Is it an experiment on Hashirama cells? He sped up unconsciously. More than 60 children participated in the experiment in the comics, of which 60 died, and only Yamato survived. This time, before reaching the laboratory, he felt the violent chakra fluctuations. The strong aura must be the cells of the first Hokage. He walked quickly to the laboratory, opened the door, and saw a big snake. Inside the house, Orochimaru, Danza, and several Anbu researchers surrounded the big snake tightly, preventing it from going crazy. It is covered with green plants, and its muscles are rapidly shrinking and collapsing. This is the shortcoming of Hashirama cells. Unable to resist erosion, your own vitality will be extracted by cells and turned into green plants. The stronger the vitality, the larger the plants formed. Like this snake. If it were not for the suppression of the seal, the room might have collapsed due to the plants. You are studying the first Hokage cells. Seeing that it was not a human experiment, Akaban walked closer to observe, and he was relieved at the same time. Sure enough, it is the cells of the first Hokage. Do you have a way? Orochimaru asked as he was helpless. He has experimented with many beasts, and finally took the risk of offending Manda with the body of summoned beast as an experiment, but the result was a complete failure. In the vessel, there is a cluster of Hashirama cells that have just been developed. He reached for it. He glanced at the redemption list, and the points for the cells between the bars quickly became 10 points. These 10 points are manual expenses to help integrate into the body. Obviously, it is a perfect fusion method. So Akaban shook his head. So even you can't help, my lord, I think you should give up. Orochimaru sighed and put down the booklet in his hand. Danza was hesitant. He is longing for wood style, and through the fusion of Hashirama cells, he may not be able to grasp the mystery of senjutsu, but the side effects of the experiment seem to be beyond imagination. He has no shortage of sacrificing his own spirit to do this, but when the consequences and ending are bloody before his eyes, he can't help but shrink back. This is human nature. Akaban didn't expect Danza to go there in person. With his old physique, transplanting Hashirama cells is almost the same as fighting life. He thought about it for a while and didn't say anything about the balance erosion of the Sharingan. This is not a good plan. In fact, Orochimaru made Danza's arm in the comics rather rough, and the effect is not good. Orochimaru later gave up the research, and finally paid a small price for big rewards in return and got a fleshy body from White Zetsu. Is there really no other way? My lord, there is probably no way for our technology at present. If we force integration, then we can't talk about technology. It is purely a matter of luck and physical fitness. If the body can't survive, it will be eroded and assimilated. Orochimaru said honestly, and the meaning is clear. The side effect of the Hashirama cells is like this. Whether it can work depends on whether the other party's life force is big enough. The higher the life force, the higher you can survive, but if your life force is not big enough, your only end is to become a green plant for the benefit of the world. Danza is entangled. How can this be done? He already went to the third Hokage, or is he going to take back his word? Teacher, wood style may not be able to hurt Madara. If you really want to consider this, why don't you think about the impure world reincarnation or curse seal? Akaban reminded. Although Senju Hashirama, who was reincarnated from the impure world reincarnation, can't match Madara who has Rinnegan, at least it was much better than Danza in the comic. As for the curse seal, it is necessary to find Joe's clan. Impure world reincarnation, curse seal. Yes, how could I forget about it? Orochimaru's eyes lit up. Although this is ninjutsu that blasphemes the dead when the village is destroyed, no one can care about blasphemy, and the curse seal has been analyzed by him before, and from his research, it is a state similar to the sage mode. If you activate the curse seal, you have the ability to damage Madara. But how much damage it can cause is also a question. Danza considered it again and again, and said, I want to try transplanting a small piece, and if I can't bear it, I will remove it. Okay, let's do it now, Akaban is on the side. Orochimaru did not hesitate and started to work decisively. Danza took out kunai, and cut a small wound on his arm. The wound was relatively small, and it was easy to go back and cut directly. He took a small piece of the cell and incorporated it into Danza. After a few seconds, his arm began to sprout. However, after Danza was inhibited with chakra, the cells seemed to stop growing, and the green shoots that grew out of them shrank back. It seems that it can be suppressed with chakra, Danza said thoughtfully. However, within a few seconds, the cells of Hashirama began to spread. It spreads very fast. It swallows the chakra used by Danza to restrain it in almost 1 or 2 seconds and then derives special and powerful energy. Seal technique. Akaban's face changed suddenly, and he quickly drew out the knife from his waist. This was the knife sent by Hatake Sagaki, an extremely sharp knife. Subsequently, the lightning current courses through the knife. Whoosh tilde. With one swing, the piece of meat was accurately cut, and the wound was temporarily sealed with blood by the electric current, followed by the use of the mystical palm technique to heal the wound. Danza frowned slightly, following the manipulation of chakra, making seals on both hands. This is the wood-style hand seal. Wood-style. Orochimaru was a little shocked. Danza is also not sure, but he feels the power of the first Hokage chakra. A second later, a small tree sapling grew out of his palm. This is wood style. An Anbu asked in a low voice. But no one answered. For a while, the atmosphere in the laboratory was a bit awkward. P.S. Ha 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 tilde. The land of river. Madara wandered around and finally stopped at Log Town. Madara, you have been here for 3 days, don't you implement our plan? If Black Zetsu had a body, he might be gritting his teeth at the moment. I thought of a new plan. I will control Konoha's Anbu from here to go to the land of wind, and then you will control the second Kazekage to send him to death so that I don't have to do it myself. Madara said lightly. Black Zetsu wants to vomit blood. This is not the same as what he said. It's not without reason that Madara wants to stay in the country of the river. He got the ability that was indeed a devil fruit, and it should be the Whisper Devil fruit mentioned in the comics. From the plot, the ability of this fruit is simply weak to burst. But Madara does not regret it. Without this fruit, he couldn't find Black, let alone know Black Zetsu was deceiving him, even if Madara didn't know what Black Zetsu was deceiving him. If he stays in the country of the river, he may find a way to further develop his devil fruit here. That's why he changed his mind. Black Zetsu wanted to do what Madara said, but he knew clearly that if he acted too enthusiastically and initiatively, Madara would be suspicious. Observing him for a while, he knew Madara quite well. And so, the plan has to be delayed again. At this moment, Black Zetsu absolutely hated Akaban more and more. After finally finding an awakened Rinnegan, he became addicted to comics. What is so good about comics? Can it be fun to save the world? He secretly decided, taking advantage of them being in the country of river, he planned to add the story of One Piece to his reading list, to see what Madara is addicted to. Study wood style. Tsunade was a little surprised and couldn't help raise her voice, but then realized that Akaban wouldn't talk nonsense when he was busy, so she stopped immediately. I can't talk about wood style, that thing, it can only summon sapling, and it's weird. Akaban said while entering the room with Tsunade. After the experiment was finished, everyone discussed the research plan for Hashirama cells temporarily. There is no doubt that Hashirama cells can derive a special chakra by absorbing chakra and life force. From the situation after Danza's experiment, Transplanting Hashirama cells can obtain a part of a special chakra in a short time. With this part of chakra, wood style can be used in a sense. The reason for adding the word transience. Over time, people may be gone, and being eroded by Hashirama chakra for too long is not just a matter of cutting off the flesh with a knife. According to Akaban's understanding, Hashirama's cell is a bit like a power bank. The difference is that its electricity comes from the host itself. If it can't control the flow, it will usher in extinction. So a small piece of meat can be controlled by Danza and can be extended to the arm. God knows that in the original work, Orochimaru hated Danza and gave him a whole arm of Hashirama cell. Although it was accompanied by Sharingans, as far as Danza Izanagi is used for expendable use, the more Izanagi is used, the more chakra is required to suppress his arm. Akaban sighed again. Tsunade didn't know what Akaban was thinking, and she was surprised by the wood style incident. Although wood style belongs to Akeki Genkai, the Senju clan has not yet awakened it, and she is also quite curious about wood style. When she walked to the yard, she couldn't help but ask, about the wood style, will it consume vitality? What do you think? Akaban glanced at her. I heard that Grandpa's vitality is very strong, but he died very early. I suspect that it may not only be due to his injury, but also his wood style and his powerful self-healing ability. The more Tsunade understands medical ninjutsu, the more she understands the powerful self-healing ability of her grandfather Senju Hashirama back then. To put it bluntly, this is a life for treatment. Correspondingly, his wooden style. I don't know, but ordinary wood is definitely not that strong. The first Hokage summer wood style must be related to his physique and chakra. Akaban whispered. Tsunade nodded thoughtfully, followed by a silent gesture, and then led him across the courtyard and into the house. The old rocking chair was pulled into the house, and Uzumaki Maito seemed to fall asleep while lying on it. Grandma, brother is here. Tomiko, who sensed his presence, ran down from the second floor. The mark on her eyebrows became more conspicuous. I knew it a long time ago. Uzumaki Maito sat up, and after more than a day's rest, she was about to recover. If she is in her peak period, with the physique of the Uzumaki family, she can recover in a short time with that kind of battle, so it shows how much damage old age affected her. Akaban couldn't help feeling sad when seeing Uzumaki Maito's state. Fortunately, there is a solution. Why is Madara, about the same age as her, still wanting to continue dancing in the Neckar River? Aunt Hashirama cell hasn't been fused yet. Uzumaki clan also has a sage-like body, which is much more compatible with Hashirama cells than an ordinary person. With Uzumaki Maito's strength, her chance for Hashirama cells fusion is definitely much higher. Therefore, if it were not for the bat fruit, he would not hesitate to transplant Hashirama cells to prolong her elderly life like Madara did. He believes Uzumaki Maito will not object. Her obsession was with Senju, Uzumaki, and Konoha, especially after knowing that Madara had Rinnegan. She would not be reconciled without seeing Madara die with her own eyes. Grandma, I'm back. Grandma Maito, are you better? Akaban was carrying several comic books, one of which was the comic of Bat Fruit, and the rest were updated content. The reason for taking these is to relieve his elder boredom and to make her familiar with the ability of the Bat Fruit vampire form in advance. It is mainly ideological to understand. An old woman with moral integrity like her might not be able to suck blood to survive like Akaban. A gift for you. Comic. I have read these volumes. Hey, this volume hasn't been printed out. Do you keep the goods privately? Uzumaki Maito was surprised. Look at it. Akaban stuffed it. She is very interested in comics. If she dies, what she is most reluctant to give up is this Konoha and the comic. Well, the comic may be better than the former. It's really a pity that she wouldn't see the ending of the comics if that happened. Uzumaki Maito is smart. After reading a few chapters, she felt that these contents seemed to be meaningful even if Akaban painted these, he really didn't mean the Red Earl as her. After reading everything, she sighed and said, "You two children. Tomiko, can you play with other children, especially your sister Chihaya for me?" "Yes, Grandma." Tomiko is very clever, she knows that her brother, sister and grandma have something to talk about, and these words are not suitable for her to hear. When she left, Uzumaki Maito pondered for a moment and asked, "Danza has begun to study the cells of Hashirama, right?" "How do you know?" Tsunade covered her mouth in shock. She only knew about this. Is it possible that Grandma's perception ability is already so strong? "You're still as sharp as ever." Akaban couldn't help but sigh. He lowered his voice when he was talking to Tsunade, and the Uzumaki clan's perception ability did not have hearing. Obviously, Uzumaki Maito developed the observation haki without a teacher. If it weren't for the system product, he might have been overtaken by Uzumaki Maito within a few days. "Don't talk nonsense, how are Hashirama cells researched?" Uzumaki Maito sat upright. "In the beginning, the teacher tried to transplant a little bit, but he couldn't control it and I cut it off." Akaban answered honestly. "Tobirama is right, that guy is much more dishonest than the monkey. However, it is a helpless choice now." Uzumaki Maito was a little relieved when she heard Danza transplanted the cells on himself. At least not that kind of experiment. She thought for a while and said, "It's really a last resort, maybe I should also transplant Hashirama cells." "What?" Tsunade didn't understand it at first, but after thinking about it deeply, she came to understand that this was to use her grandfather cells to increase lifespan and physical activity. She hesitated, wondering whether to talk about bat fruit. What to say? "This thing seems to have not been obtained yet, it's just that Akaban dreamed of it, but if her grandma transplanted her grandfather cells, the side effects would be serious." She thought for a while, and asked, "What do you think of bat fruit?" "Nice." Akaban gave her a thumbs up in his heart, which seemed too deliberate to ask. "Oh, the vampire form, I really need to have." Uzumaki Maito was originally joking, but then thinking of Akaban's ability to control thunder and lightning, she immediately held back what she was going to say. After thinking about it seriously for a few seconds, she said, "If there is one, I will definitely eat it. At least I can go to hell with Madara." "That's great." Tsunade was so happy. Akaban glanced at her and couldn't help but pour cold water and said, "Jiraiya has just gone out to sea. Whether he found it or not is the problem." "Why are you so happy?" "Lord First Hokage cells still need to be recorded, honestly. The current Konoha cannot do without your help." "Ha, don't worry, I can't bear to leave without seeing the ending of your comic." Uzumaki Maito was half joking and half emotional. Although it is only a small comic, it contains a lot of Akaban's hard work and has changed Konoha a lot. Without him, could Uchiha be like this? With Danza's personality, Uchiha will rebel sooner or later in the future. Madara obviously has no affection for his clansmen, so it's not weird for him to use Danza to exterminate his clan. Akaban sat down and chatted with her for a while, then got up and left. When he left, he went to find Tomiko and the others to play for a while anyhow. She is his younger sister, and he had to accompany her when he got here. After he left, Uzumaki Maito held this lonely red comic with a thoughtful expression. Bat fruit. Although it was just something from the comics, she had an inexplicable intuition that Jiraiya could not only return safely this trip but would also escort the devil fruit to Konoha all the way. A very strange intuition. This is also one of the reasons why she asked little Tomiko to go out after reading the comic. But thinking about it, does it have anything to do with Akaban? She fell into deep thought, but thinking of Akaban's thunder and lightning ability and Tsunad's reaction, she thought for a while and asked, Tsunade, how come this book has no beginning and end? What's the plot in front? It's a plot that Akaban dreamed of, and he said he hasn't figured out how to insert it in the main plot yet. Tsunade replied. Dream. Uzumaki Maito lay on her rocking chair thinking deeply. Dream, comics, devil fruit, and the family of the dream Topper who appeared with the ability to manipulate dreams. Interesting. She smiled playfully. Grandma, what are you laughing at? It's nothing, I just thought that Akaban shouldn't teach you how to use observation haki. Come here and I will teach you how to use it. Uzumaki Maito didn't answer, but casually mentioned another thing and broke the topic. Tsunade thought it was weird, and even more weird. Why did Akaban teach her grandma observation haki, but he didn't mention it to her at all? Unacceptable. After hearing what Uzumaki Maito said about observation haki, Tsunade became even angrier, and she definitely needed to ask Akaban gently, otherwise, no one would like him. Walking out of the house of the Senju clan, Akaban shuddered suddenly. He couldn't help but glance back. This place is a bit wicked. Every time he comes, he doesn't seem to catch up with any good things. He always feels that something went wrong this time. Where is the problem? Akaban was a little puzzled, and couldn't understand what was going on after returning home. Suddenly, when he thought of leaving, Uzumaki Maito's eyes. That look was strange. I remember. Doesn't the observation haki have the ability to foresee the future? The other shadow clone nodded after listening. And look at the original like he is looking at a retired person, which is himself. Anyone who has seen One Piece knows that Big Mom's son Katakuri has trained his observation haki to the point of predicting the future, but his ability can only see a short future. It's not just Katakuri. In the comics, many characters have also entered this state when they are in desperation. Could it be said that Uzumaki Maito has mastered this ability? Akaban felt a little flustered when he thought of her mastering the observation haki to that extent for a long time. That's it for this part, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. And also tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendation. Thanks for watching.